Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, June 14th of 2026. And a shout out to my beautiful oldest sister. We are a year apart. Hers is June 14th, mine is May 14th. And for every year, we are the same age, if you will, but we're exactly 11 months apart. So happy birthday to my beautiful sister. But I had a really great journaling session this week that was brought up by a conversation from a dear friend over the last weekend where we talked about the idea that she wished her mother would just be a little bit more of a mentor for her. So we kind of just talked about, it brought up this whole conversation about we get to choose whether we're a victim or we're a creator in our own life, in this human avatar, right? So here's how I started. I sat down with my journal after we had this and I wrote this. There comes a point when we're an adult, when our healing depends less on understanding what happened to us and more on deciding what we will do with what happened to us. Okay. So then I just kind of started writing. I got some great things and I have some really great journaling questions. So I'm going to try to make this brief because to me, this is something I talk about all the time. I talk about we get to choose how we handle the things that happened to us in our past, not just our childhood, previous marriages, previous friendships, previous workplaces, yesterday. If something happened to us yesterday, we get to, that was hurt us or whatever, we get to choose, right? So this is kind of what flowed. One of the greatest shifts in my life happened when I stopped asking this question. Why did this happen to me? And I started asking this. What am I going to do with what happened to me? Okay. So instead of saying, why did this happen to me? Say, okay, what am I going to do with this? This happened. Now what do I do with this? Okay. Like everyone, I have stories. Okay. I have people who've disappointed me, circumstances that hurt me, opportunities I didn't get, experiences that shaped me. And some of these wounds were very deep. No one escapes this. We all of us experience this. And a lot of situations are similar and a lot of situations are different. Okay. And what I realized is some of these took me years and years to understand. I don't like the word regret or I wished I'd looked at this different, but I can still say that. I wish I'd looked things differently instead of letting it take me years and years and years to get over something or forgive something or reframe something, right? So for a long time, I believed that my healing would come from getting what I missed. Okay. Maybe if someone finally understood me, if someone apologized, okay, that's a big one. We wait for someone to apologize. My life would get better if this person would just apologize. Okay. Maybe if the people who hurt me, if they changed, maybe if that person who hurt me, they changed. They apologized and then they changed. Then I can move on and things would be better. Maybe it would somehow make life right. And then I realized this. I've realized that waiting for someone else to change is the fastest way that I could give up my power. I'm waiting for someone else to change. I'm giving my power away so quickly. I'm so glad that I realized that as long ago as I did. I still fall into that sometimes, but I pull myself out of it very quickly. Many people never become who we need them to be, okay? They never apologized. They never understood the impact they had. And some are simply incapable, this is important, of giving us what we hoped for. They're just incapable. It doesn't have anything to do with you. They're just incapable, okay? The day I accepted that is the day that I stopped being bitter. I stopped being bitter about things, right? And here's what happened. That is the day I became free. The day I realized that I can be bitter about something, I can wait for someone to change or apologize or all that stuff. Why would you want to do that? Free yourself. Cut those chains off today, right? I realized that my future was no longer dependent on someone else's that's growth, awareness, approval, or validation. What my future, you're going to give away your power of your future to someone else. You're waiting for someone to validate you or approve you, someone else to be aware. That's crazy. I could spend the rest of my life building a case for why I am the way I am. I could gather all the evidence. I could explain everything. I could explain the fears, the insecurities, and all the limitations I had. Like, do you know people like this? And I know this because I've done this in the past, okay? And the thing that's crazy, and I wrote this, I could be right about all of it. All the things that I'm gathering evidence about of why I'm this way and why my life can't move forward because of this person in this situation, I would be right about all of it, right? Being right would not change my life. That's what I realized. As I'm writing this, I'm like, I could be right about all this stuff, but here's the thing. I could be right, but it doesn't change my life. Okay, great, you're right. Now what? Okay? But here's what I realized. Taking responsibility would. That's what changes your life. So this is the difference between understanding the wounds that I have as a human, we all have wounds, and then changing the story. And instead of being a victim, I can live instead from these things that help me grow. And I know many of you are already on that path, and you're right there. So I believe that one of the greatest temptations in life is to build an identity around what happened to us. Okay, it can feel safer to stay attached to the story of our disappointments rather than to risk becoming something greater than them. Okay, why does that feel so risky to become greater than the things that define us? These disappointments, why would you want to let the disappointment? I think we just get caught in a loop. Sometimes it's not even conscious, it's just all subconscious because it's the natural groove that we're in, and it just feels comfortable. And we like that. We like the safe thing no matter how bad it is for us, right? And then I wrote this, I know because I've done it. I've done it. I've done it many more times than I like to admit, right? What finally changed for me was realizing that while my past explains me, it explains who I am, it does not get to excuse me. It doesn't excuse who I become. You know, there are many people who let their past excuse the person they are in the future and the person they are in the present. I mean, that's so sad to me. It explains why certain things can be harder and why some fears are deeper, okay? But it does not get to decide who I become. And then I wrote big exclamation marks. Okay, it can explain why things are harder. Some things are harder and some things are more fearful. The more you practice this, the more you don't let yourself even maybe go a little bit into victim mentality for a moment when something's hard or someone does something that hurts you or wounds you or whatever, or there's a really hard circumstance, or, think about people who go through really hard things in their childhood, like abuse and neglect and really hard things. People who go through the pain of divorce, you get to choose how that defines you. Or you can stay in that victim mentality and you can, it's just interesting, right? So all these things don't get to decide who I become. So here's when I was talking to this friend, here's what I wrote after that. So when I talk to others, I try to help them see the distinction. Okay, I don't want to, but here's the thing. I don't want to minimize the pain because the pain is real and the loss is real. So you're not trying to minimize that. And not only that, disappointment is real, but so is personal responsibility. So is that. That's real too. And we forget that because personal responsibility is hard and it's uncomfortable until you start utilizing it, and then it becomes empowering and it becomes freedom. You're not stuck. Okay? So at some point, every one of us face a choice. We can spend our life focusing on who failed us, or we can focus on who we're becoming. Right? I can continue waiting for these things: permission, validation, understanding, rescue, and justice. I can keep waiting for justice. I can keep waiting for someone to validate me. I can wait for someone to apologize to me. You can keep doing that. We can all do that, right? Or I can begin to build the life that I want with the tools that I have right now. Because we're all in different places and we all have different tools, right? So I realize this: healing begins when I stop asking life to give me what I should have received years ago and start giving to myself. Like, it's like, oh, my parents should have done this to me or this for me. Like as the second oldest of 14 kids, and I know I talk about this all the time, but this is a real part of the life that I have that shaped me. Um, I could say I never got an opportunity to go to college. I mean, as an adult, of course, I could have gone to college, and I had several sisters and siblings that did. Or my mom had too many kids, and I didn't get enough attention. Or I always had to have hand-me-down clothes from people in our church, which was true, or I had to sew my own clothes, which was true. I could make, you know, so I could choose to let that define me in the victim mentality, okay? So I realized that healing begins when I stop asking for life to give me what I should have received years ago and start giving to myself, um, which are compassion, encouragement, discipline, grace, boundaries, accountability, and hope. No one can do the work for me, okay? And this is not bad news. It's the most empowering truth I know. I think that's important for every single one of us, okay? If I wait for someone else, if someone else is responsible for fixing me, then I have to wait. Why would you want to wait? Oh, I need to wait for someone else to come and fix me. Why would you want to wait? Oh, like I can be the most impatient person when there's something that I see, some vision, something I want done. Um, I can be a little bit slower when it's personal stuff, or I feel like someone's hurt me, or my feelings have been hurt, or something massive, right? If I'm responsible for my growth, then I can start today. That is the cool thing. Okay. So I have a ton of questions, but here's how I ended the journaling. Now that I know what happened, what am I going to do about it? Like, this can go for any situation. Okay. Any situation. So now I have some questions. I'm just going to go through these really quickly. There's 20 of them. And this is going to be a short and sweet video. We're only at 12 minutes, which is awesome. So these are questions that I'm going to put below the video so that you can cut and paste them, or you can just open up the YouTube or Rumble where this video lives, open the show notes up, and you can just journal on these. Because if you find yourself even a little bit in victim mentality, these have the potential to completely change the way you see the world and the way you move through it. Because instead of living from your past, you now get to live in your future. Because this is a short experience in this human body. Like, the thing that's crazy to think about, what defines Jane, me, is not this body. It's not this. I'm not a human. I'm a divine spark of pure God source. That's really what I am. And we're in a time of great remembering. And because we have technology, we have all this access to information and other people who are teaching, and we get to hear these truths and absorb them. Why would you want to walk through this existence as a victim? Ugh. Right? Okay, so here's these questions. What story about my past do I repeat so often that it has become a part of my identity? Now, I'm not talking about things that happened that were beautiful, okay? I'm talking about things that keep us stuck in a victim mentality, okay? How does holding on to my hurt benefit me? What responsibility do I get to avoid because of it? What am I still blaming someone else for that I now have the power to change? If I stopped waiting for an apology, what excuse would I lose? Some of these are really, really massive because we hold on to that. We hold on to the grudge. We all know that when you forgive somebody, even without them apologizing to you, you're doing it for yourself. Sure, you're doing it for them, but if someone never apologizes, it doesn't mean you can't forgive them. This is a basic. We've heard this 100 times, right? Where am I demanding that life be fair before I allow myself to move forward? We are caught in crazy times. Until there's a new president, until there's a new person in the city council, until my neighbor does this and my neighbor moves, or whatever. Okay? Where am I demanding that life be fair before I allow myself to move forward? You might think everything in the world is unfair if you're keeping up on all the stuff that's in politics and the world. And this is where the disconnection from technology has to come in so you can settle your nervous system and settle your reality and become a creator of your life. Okay. What am I still hoping someone else will fix that is actually my work to do? How much of my energy is spent proving I was wronged instead of creating the life I want? I know a few people like this who are basically spending their energy proving that they've been wronged rather than creating the life they want. That one right there has the potential to change someone's life that might be a little bit caught in that, or a lot caught in that. They might not realize it. They don't want to see themselves in that. But that one right there is so powerful. If the people who hurt me never changed, okay, never understood and never made it right, what would I do next? This one is so powerful. Where have I confused being understood with being healed? Do you need someone to absolutely understand your perspective or what happened to you or your wounds or I mean, it's nice. It's nice to have someone understand. It's like how I feel growing up in the family I grew up in, and the attention that maybe I wished I would have had from my mom, even as an adult. I didn't get the type of mother-daughter connection as an adult daughter, because being second oldest in such a big family, my mom was raising babies at the same time I was raising babies. My brother and my son are 2 months apart. So I never, thankfully, I ever never felt like a victim in that situation. But I know things like that happen with our parents and things. We can stay in victim mentality. Um, what would be possible if I stopped making my future pay for my past? Like, we stop ourselves from having the most brilliant present and future because we're making our future pay for what happened in the past. And it never ends. This happened to me when I was a kid. This happened to me in college. This happened to me with my first marriage. And your future is constantly paying for your past. When are you going to stop? If that is you, even on a small scale, when does your future stop paying for the past? That is a powerful question. What complaint have I been carrying for years that have produced nothing more than suffering? Am I more committed to my reasons or to my results? Where am I using self-awareness as a substitute for action? This one is good for people, especially for people who are on a self-awareness journey. Okay? There still needs to be action taken. Where am I just using self-awareness as a substitute for action? Okay, I asked that question because I relate to that question. And I've caught myself in that loop. Like, okay, I'm aware. But I've realized that it paralyzes me unless I take action. Okay. What part of my life am I secretly waiting for permission to take ownership of? If I met someone exactly like me, would I see a person taking responsible for their life or a person explaining why they can't? What excuse would disappear if I fully accepted that no one is coming to save me? What excuse would disappear? And I'm not saying don't think that a religious figure or political figure or the right marriage or the right friend who's got a lot of money or whatever. Like, right? So what excuse would disappear if I fully accepted that no one was coming to save me? That one can trigger people. I get it. I get it. I get it fully. What payoff do I get from staying stuck? Are you secretly getting a payoff every time you complain about something, whatever it is, your health, your lack of money, your lack of attention, your lack of parents who didn't pay attention to you, or, what payoff do I get from staying stuck? Is there some payoff you're getting that you might not realize? Some of these are kind of like owie, like, ooh, that's a tough question, right? Who would I be without my favorite complaint? What truth about myself am I avoiding by focusing on what others did to me? And then the last one, at what point does my pain stop being my explanation and start becoming my choice. We get to choose. At the end of the day, we get to choose. We get to choose so many things. We are here with this human existence full of choice. And I think the more awareness we bring, but the more releasing of victim mentality, um, even on the little things, because this is something that's been on my radar for many years, and I've talked about it over the years because I think it's really, really important. And we all still get caught in that, no matter how aware we are, or how much personal growth we have. Um, but I do think it gets much, much easier. It gets much easier. So I would love to know what you think about this. Where along the journey are you? Or maybe if you're super brave, put in the comments, what is something that you feel after watching this that kind of dawned on you that you feel like you could release, an excuse that's keeping you stuck, something in the past that's hijacking your future. Like, if you look at it that way, it's like, here's what I say: oh, hell no. I'm not going to let that happen. I am not going to let something I can't change, something I'm waiting for someone to do or apologize for or rescue me or bail me out of something. I'm letting that hijack my future and my present, what's happening right now. So I'd love to know if there is something that you can think at the top of your head as I'm explaining this, and you're brave enough to share. I think it would also help other people see themselves in it too. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. Here we are halfway through June of 2026, and we will see you next week.